Week 14 is here, and we are officially ready for fantasy football playoff season. 1 week away. We've got a bunch of running back names to go through today. Some names we have to hit on, some big time matchups, some things to watch. Looking forward to week 14 and beyond. So let's get straight to it here on the Face Off Sports Network. Getting straight into it, week 13 was pretty good for the running back position, but we didn't have a bunch of ceiling plays. I mean, we had Bijan who got 30 points. Other than that, everyone was in the 20-point range. So this week, we're looking ahead to some big time matchups where there's some big, juicy plays here at the start of tier one. So let's get straight to it, where I have Devon Achane, James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and Bucky Irving in my first tier. Starting off with Devon Achane, the guy who continues to just get it done through targets and efficiency on the ground, gets to take on the New York Jets. I really, really like what Devon Achane is doing. I mean, coming off a week where he was the running back 6, scored 19 points on the week. Achane takes on the Jets. The Jets are giving up a bunch of points to the running back position. The defense is dismantled. The opportunity is great. So I really like what Devon Achane can do this week. Carrying on, I have on my next position James Cook, the RB2 for me on the week, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. We've talked about this numerous times throughout the season. The Bengals give up an absolute ton of fantasy points to the running back position, so I expect James Cook to do just that. Coming off a week where he had 18 points, I think Buffalo is going to rely on this run game. The pass game's not necessarily been there for them, so James Cook, to me, is someone who's set up for a big-time week taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. That's why I have him here as my RB2. Looking at my RB3 with Jahmyr Gibbs, yes, I understand the Lions have been a little bit inconsistent. I understand there's some losses that certainly we could talk about what they've done. Gibbs was running back 25 on the week, just 11.6 points on the week against the Packers over there on Thanksgiving Day. Now gets to take on Dallas. Dallas is giving up some points to the running back position, although they've been better as of late because of the defensive additions they've made. I think they're going to rely on the run game, especially if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out. That's the big thing to look for. They play tomorrow night on Thursday, so that's going to be a pretty quick turnaround. So if Amon-Ra is out, I expect them to lean on the run game. And I think Jahmyr is going to be a solid play. He's a guy that can break anything at any given time. He stays involved both in the passing game and in the run game. Yes, they're going to use David Montgomery, but what we've seen is unless David Montgomery gets a touchdown, he's really not eating into the workload of Jahmyr Gibbs. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a must play. He's in this top tier for me pretty easily. Jonathan Taylor, my RB4 on the week. I like Jonathan Taylor taking on Jacksonville. That's a tough defense up front. They've been pretty good against the run. It's quietly done, too. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do and what this offense can do. Daniel Jones is hampered up. This is a divisional game. The Jags just actually took the lead in the division. The Colts have been moved to the wild card spot. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Jonathan Taylor was the running back 18 on the week, scored 15 points last week. I think Taylor's going to be fine going forward. But again, we have to emphasize this is a tough matchup. There's no way around it. And if Daniel Jones continues to be limited, or maybe he plays a little bit worse than he did this past week, it could make this team a little bit easier to cue on. They could load the box and try and stop Jonathan Taylor that way. So Jones is going to have to find a way to elevate this team to move them forward. And to get to my running back 5 here, it's going to be Bijan Robinson. He was the running back 1 on the week. Already mentioned it, had 30 points on the week. Now he gets to take on the Seattle Seahawks. That's a tough matchup too. This defense is really good against running backs. They're going to continue to play really strong up front. So I want to put Bijan higher, but again, it's one of those plays where you have to respect the defense he's going against, and that's why I have him here at running back 5. You could make the case to move him out of tier 1, but I think just given the talent that he is, he can do anything like he did this past week where he scored 30 points. So I like Bijan. I think he's going to continue to be a guy that we can rely and trust on in our lineups. Just manage expectations. Don't expect the 30-point week taking on this tough Seattle defense. And to close out this first tier for me, we've got Bucky Irving. Bucky is taking on New Orleans, so the matchup is absolutely fantastic. He's got the opportunity to score a ton of fantasy points. Coming back off of injury where he had his first start, 16.1 points on the week. Got a basically half of the snaps. So he continues to be someone who's going to share the workload no matter who is back there. But he's the clear cut guy, the clear cut one who's going to be the most efficient with the ball in his hands. So I like Bucky going forward. I think the matchup this week against New Orleans in a divisional game that they need to win. The Panthers keep winning games. I think it's going to be huge going forward. So I really like Bucky Irving in this spot. And he's a guy that I think is going to sneak inside of the top 6 here where I have him at 6. So I like him this week. My tier 2, let's get to Kyren Williams, Chase Brown, Quinshon Judkins, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and RJ Harvey. Starting off with Kyren Williams, who takes on the Arizona Cardinals. Great matchup there. The big question mark is, will Kyren play? Yes, Corum would be a great spot start in the event Kyren doesn't play. So if he's on waivers, that's a great pickup right there. All that to say, I believe Kyren will play against the Cards. And if he does, he's going to be a fantastic play there. The injury news, it's just what you're going to have to watch going forward. And Kyron's one of those guys in this offense. They're playing really, really good right now. They're scoring a bunch of points. They're really efficient throwing the ball. And I understand that, against the Panthers, ironically, they struggled and they lost that game. But Kyren Williams is a big-time player for this offense, and they need him, frankly, to continue to roll and get better going forward. I mean, he's liable to score a touchdown at any given moment. Earlier in the year, he was doing it through the air. That's kind of fell off as of late. But I think as long as he plays, he's a guy I'm going to put in my lineup, especially in this matchup. My next running back, my running back 8 is going to be Chase Brown. Chase Brown has played fantastic, averaging over 5 yards a carry for the last 3 weeks. The offensive line for the Bengals has been surprisingly better as of late. The addition of Joe Burrow only helps this offense provide more of a threat to continue to move the ball down the field. Chase Brown this past week was the running back 10. So another solid week for him. He had 18.3 points. Again, that's 3 weeks in a row. He's strung together really good fantasy finishes and taking on the Buffalo Bills. While ordinarily we might think Buffalo's a tough matchup, tough to play up there in Buffalo. At the same time, Buffalo's giving up the 4th most points to the running back position. So I like that opportunity for Chase Brown, for him to score a bunch of points for your team. I mean, we're coming off weeks where he's had 7 targets, 14 targets. I mean, the guy's just getting it done in all aspects of the game. Efficiency running the ball and catching the ball through the air on an offense that's better and scoring a ton of points. So I like Chase Brown, and that's why I have him here inside of my top 10 and in tier 2. I understand that's high, and I understand why you might fade him, but the matchup is great. And carrying on with good matchups, let's talk about Quinshon Judkins, who gets to take on Tennessee. That's another top 5 matchup at the running back position. Tennessee giving up a bunch of points. The passing attack for Cleveland, inconsistent and unpredictable. The rushing attack, however, has been very consistent. We know Quinshon Judkins is going to get, 15 to 20 opportunities to run the ball and a couple targets. So knowing he's taking on the Titans, I love that. That's a smash play. He's going to be fantastic there. Coming off the week, he was 16 on the week with almost 16 points. So I like Quinshon Judkins. He's going to be a guy that I'm going to play, probably using some DFS lineups just because the Titans, they give up a ton of points to the running back position. So take advantage of that if you do have Quinshon Judkins on your team. My running back 10 is going to be Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs gets to take on the Chicago Bears. Bears give up some points to the running back position, but they're a really hot team right now. Jacobs, yes, he's had the injury question marks to certainly go through. I think that Jacobs is needed for this team. They need to find a way to establish the run and continue to use him going forward. I mean, it hasn't happened this past week. He was running back 34, but he still got you 10 points. So the running back position was pretty strong this past week. 10 points at 34 is not too bad. I understand you were certainly hoping for more, and I think he can provide more going forward. But as it stands right now, I mean, the matchup's tough. I think that's why he's this back-end RB1, and he's going to be able to provide for your lineup. You got to watch and monitor the health situation, but the Packers, they're another one of these teams that, they got a big win on Thanksgiving. Can they ride that momentum and get another divisional game, another divisional win after beating the Lions? So this NFC North is really shaping up to be a big-time battle. So I like Josh Jacobs. He's a guy I think is a threat to get in the end zone against a Bears defense that's a little bit overinflated and does allow some points to the running back position. So be sure to monitor that as we go forward. Derrick Henry is my running back 11 here. He's taking on Pittsburgh. The matchup there, middle tier there. But I do think that Derrick Henry is a guy that is getting hot at the right time. And it's not necessarily through a points that's efficient. I mean, he's still getting some plays. He's getting plenty of opportunity. 17 points this past week. Lamar Jackson's hurt, so I think that also leads to him having to be more involved in that run game where they can't necessarily use Lamar. He's also played, frankly, terrible. The passing attack has not been there. I mean, last year he threw for 41 touchdowns. This year, only 15. Yes, he's certainly missed some time. He's thrown the same amount of interceptions as he did last year, only 4. But we need to remember that Derrick Henry is liable to make a big play at any given moment. His missed tackles force, not what it used to be. His elusive rating, not what it used to do. But he still is getting plenty of opportunity, and he's making do with it. I mean, if he gets 15, 16 carries and he gets you 80 yards and a touchdown, adds a couple catches like he has been recently, he's been great for your lineup. So I like Derrick Henry. He's a back-end RB1 for me, and I'll continue to use him. I mean, I kind of talked about it earlier when I was saying I felt the touchdown coming, and there it was. So I like Derrick Henry. RJ Harvey closes out tier 1 for me here, or excuse me, tier 2 in my RB1s. Harvey gets to take on the Las Vegas Raiders, so the matchup there is interesting. The Raiders have certainly played tough at times, including against Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, but at the end of the day, RJ Harvey coming off a week where he was RB2, had 20 points. The efficiency, not necessarily there rushing the ball, but he's getting touchdowns. He's catching the ball through the air. The team's going to use him. As long as J.K. Dobbins is hurt, there's opportunity for RJ Harvey going forward. But let's get to my tier 3 here. Some more big names, and let's start off with Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Ashton Jeanty, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, and Kenneth Walker. So our first running back here, Javonte Williams, taking on the Detroit Lions. The matchup there, actually not as bad as you think it would be. Detroit is certainly tough against running backs. Javonte is another one of those guys that's been really consistent in scoring a bunch of points and finds a way to get it done, both through the air and on the ground. The touchdowns could be there. I mean, I think this is one of those games that shapes up to be a shootout. And Javonte, I mean, this past week had 17 points on Thanksgiving. I think he could easily replicate that against the Detroit defense, which is still allowing points to the running back position. So I like what he can do going forward, man. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch on Thursday night. The injuries, going to have to watch what happens there with the Dallas offensive line. Of course, we talked about the injuries on the opposite side of the field with the Detroit Lions, but Javonte, man, he's a safe RB2 for me. I've got him right here as the first one overall in this tier. Let's carry on. Oh, excuse me, wrong picture there. Let's get to Saquon Barkley. Barkley gets to take on the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday night. That's a tougher matchup. The Chargers have been pretty good against running back position. But all that to say, the Eagles are still just really inconsistent. There's no way around that. You know, Saquon Barkley is a guy that I think we want to say we can trust, but only 5 points this past week. And as much as I've said they're going to rely on the run at this point, it's not happening. So I think we have to continue to phase him out. That's why I have him here in this third tier. You could argue to move him lower, and I wouldn't really fight you too much. The only issue is that he's just always one play away from making something really go his way. He's done it a little bit this year. You know, the passing attack for Philly has been hot and cold. I mean, they could absolutely use it. They could absolutely find a way for him to perform this upcoming week. But the Chargers defense, like I said, is a little bit stingy. The offense is the big question mark for me. There's a chance where the Chargers offense could be frankly bad if Justin Herbert is injured and does not play, and it's Trey Lance. And that would just lead to Philly just saying, hey, let's run out the clock. Let's just use Saquon Barkley in this offensive line. And, you know, it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Even if he averages 3 yards a carry, you know, if he gets 25 opportunities, he could easily have 2 touchdowns and, 100 yards. So I like Barkley enough to put him in this tier 3, but I don't trust him enough to put him in the tier 1 just because this Eagles offense has been so inconsistent. Looking at my RB15 on the week, Ashton Jeanty. We talked about this matchup just a little bit ago, taking on the Denver defense. It's a tough matchup. The offensive line is not good in Denver, in Las Vegas. Denver's defensive line causes a lot of issues. So I struggle to say Jeanty can be this top 10 guy. He certainly has the ability to make plays, but when you watch the tape, you see what he's done. He's not necessarily doing a ton with the ball in his hands. Part of that is because the offensive line is really bad. The other part of that is just he's not making the plays. He's got to make some people miss at some point. He's doing a little bit, but not enough really to say that he's a plug-and-play fantasy star. So I got him here as an RB2. He's going to get the volume. We'll see what happens with Chip Kelly on the move out as the play caller, offensive coordinator gone. So maybe that opens up the offense a little bit. I mean, there was lots of rumors and reports that he was calling plays wrong, calling plays that weren't necessarily right, all sorts of lineup issues. And you could see that when you're watching the Raiders. So there's a lot of question marks with this team, and I'm really intrigued to see what they do with Genty going forward this week. Looking at my running back 16, Brees Hall here, he was the RB 17 on the week. He scored 15.6 points this past week. He gets to take on the Miami Dolphins. That defense is hot and cold. Tyrod has elevated this team at least a little bit. We have to admit that he is better than Justin Fields. Justin Fields provided no passing attack. Tyrod is airing it out. So it helps this team a little bit more, allows Brees Hall to get more opportunity and be a little bit more efficient on the ground game when he has at least some threat of a passing attack. So I like Brees Hall here. I think he's another one of these guys that's really athletic. He's making plays. He's making people miss. It's just he's not on a good team. That's the big issue. So I like Brees Hall. I think he's going to be a guy you can play as an RB2, but just limit expectations. And again, this Miami defense, you don't know which version is going to show up. So that's going to be the big question mark for this week for Brees Hall. Running back 17, Travis Etienne. I mean, we've talked about this Jags defense and how they've stepped up. The other side of that is the Jags offensive line has stepped up. The run game has been extremely efficient. While Bashal Tutin continues to be a guy that gets involvement and gets work, he could be a spot start if you need him. Travis Etienne continues to be really efficient with the ball in his hands, getting plenty of games where he's averaging over 5 yards a carry, and he's only getting about 2/3 of the snaps or 2/3 of the opportunity. Again, it's because his offense has become very, very efficient. While the passing attack still has some inconsistencies where guys like Brian Thomas aren't necessarily performing, we do see where Travis Etienne continues to make big plays and continues to find ways to score and get in the end zone. Lots of games strung together for him with double-digit points. So I like Travis Etienne going forward. And there's a really good argument to move him up higher on this list. He just takes on the Indianapolis Colts, and they're pretty good against the running back position. So we have to keep that in mind. It's a good defensive line, a good front seven versus a good offensive line in Jacksonville that's moving the ball pretty good and moving earth when they're running the ball. So exciting matchup there. I highlighted on our Wednesday show. That's one of my favorite games to watch this weekend just because of the divisional matchup, because of the front seven, because of the offensive lines. Lots of things to look for in these two rushing attacks in week 14 as we approach our fantasy playoffs. And to close out tier 3 for me, I've got Kenneth Walker. And I know what you're going to say, man, Kenneth Walker, how can we trust him? He's been a guy that's not necessarily getting it done. I understand running back 33 this past week where he got 10.4 points, and that's kind of what he's been. Not a bunch of touchdowns for him. If he can find a way to get in the end zone, my word, it would help. He does take on the Atlanta Falcons. That defense started off much better than they have been as of late, so I like the matchup there. Sharbs continues to be a guy that's been inefficient, but they use at the goal line, so it's going to continue to be a thorn in everyone's side. It is what it is, but I like the matchup, and I can't help but say that I think that Kenneth Walker could easily break one and find a way to be a big-time playmaker in our offenses and in our fantasy lineups this week. But let's get to my tier 4 and close out the top 24 here. We've got Jordan Mason, Jaylen Warren, DeAndre Swift, Kamani Vidal, Woody Marks, and Kyle Monangai. Now, this is going to be our asterisk tier. There's lots of question marks here that we need to go through, and it starts none other with Jordan Mason. I mean, we've got to figure out, is Jordan Mason going to be the guy? Is Aaron Jones going to play? I mean, we had the injury to Aaron Jones last week. It looks like, there's some limited practice and possibility for him to end up playing. The good news is for whatever Viking running back you play, they're playing the Washington Commanders, who are giving up a ton of points to the running back position. I mean, here we have RJ Harvey, 21.2 points, and guess who he played? Washington. So I like, if Mason can be the guy, I like him. I think he's a good spot start in this matchup. If Aaron Jones does end up playing, I tend to lean Aaron Jones over Jordan Mason. But all that to say, I'm not really sure that it matters too much. I think both are going to be guys that you can play if needed. If they're both healthy, they're both active, they're going to eat into each other's role. If it is just Mason, they're certainly going to have someone who is going to be an aid to him. But at the same time, I think Mason's going to get a majority of the workload, and I like targeting this Washington defense, and I've talked about that a lot over the last few weeks. My running back 20, Jaylen Warren. Yes, Kenny Gainwell is going to remain involved. Warren gets to take on the Baltimore Ravens, so the matchup there is interesting. The Ravens just got destroyed. Lots of turnovers, lots of issues in that game. At the same time, the Steelers' offense just has been inconsistent. But what I know about Jaylen Warren is he's going to score about 10 points for your team. He's going to get, 10 to 15 carries. add a couple targets. Yes, Kenny Gainwell is going to get probably the same, but unless Gainwell gets a big play touchdown or finds a way to get double, red zone or goal line carries, Warren's pretty much going to be the safer play. So I expect that in this divisional game. I think it's going to be another really interesting game to follow. We've got the injury to Aaron Rodgers, lots of things to break down in that game. So it's something to monitor as we move forward. But carrying on here, we've got DeAndre Swift at running back 21 and Monunga at 24. I'm just going to do both of those guys together since they play for the same team. Coming off a week where they played the Eagles front seven is something that we've talked about, that they're pretty tough up front. And what did the Bears do? They ran the ball for 260 yards. They ran it down their throats. Both Swift and Monunga got plenty of opportunity, and both were very, very efficient. We've talked about how Ben Johnson wants to recreate this Detroit offense here in Chicago and have a hammer and a nail. Kyle Monunga is the hammer. He can run downhill, man. When you watch him get the ball out of the backfield, he just bursts through the hole, bursts through the gap. Whatever the play call is, he just runs through there like a madman. DeAndre Swift, he continues to be the guy that's the Jahmyr Gibbs light. They're not even close in talent level, and I mean that respectfully, but he's going to get plenty of opportunities, going to get plenty of things through the air that can give him, a little bit more of a cushion than Monunga might get just based on the attempts. Now, they do have to take on the Green Bay Packers, so it's a tougher defense there, a tougher matchup. It's a divisional game on Sunday, so I'm excited for that matchup. Both of these running backs are guys that I would be comfortable playing if I have to. They will eat into each other's workload. If the game is low scoring, it's going to favor Swift just because he's going to get, the work through the air. If Monunga can get some opportunities at the goal line, he will score. I mean, he continues to show that he's a guy that week in and week out should be someone that should start. I mean, I'm shocked with DeAndre Swift's performance this past week. 20.8 points on the week where he was the running back 3. And then we look at Monunga, who's the running back 8 with 19 points. So these guys are basically recreating what we saw in Detroit last year. Ben Johnson has highlighted that the passing attack in Chicago is not very good right now, and no one's happy with it. I totally get that, and I understand that they want to work on that, and Caleb Williams has a lot of things that he could do better. Roma Dunze has not necessarily been involved or efficient, but all that is to say that interior offensive line, the center and the 2 guards, have been so dang good. They are just moving people around at will. The tackles have also played well when they're run blocking. So this is something that I think that this run game is finally hitting their peak. They're finding a way to get it done. So I like the 2 Chicago running backs this week. I think they're going to have a good opportunity to do it again. I don't think they do it for 260 yards like they did, but it is certainly possible the way that this team is playing. Looking at my running back 22 is going to be Kamani Vidal. This is another one of those asterisk plays. We have to figure out what's going to happen with, Amari and Hampton. If Hampton plays, we're moving Vidal out and we're putting Hampton in. And you could argue that Hampton should be higher than where Vidal's at. I mean, the matchup against Philly, like we've talked about, ordinarily we'd say it's tough, but we just finished discussing how the Bears absolutely destroyed that front seven. Does that happen again? No, I don't think so. The Bears have a much better offensive line than the Chargers have currently. The Chargers tackles are injured. There's been some other injuries there. I think with Hampton coming back, he's certainly a better play than Vidal. He's going to be active. He's going to have plenty of opportunities. It's just a matter of if he gets to play. He has not officially been cleared to play or be the starter for this team. So that's what you have to monitor. If he doesn't play, Vidal is a fine volume play, but he is a limited upside. So that's why I have him here in tier 4. If Hampton were in, we're shooting that name way higher. So be sure to remember that. And to close out this tier here, since we've already talked about Monunga, we've got Woody Marks. Marks gets to take on Kansas City. That front seven is pretty good against the run, so limit your expectations there. The Texans' offense has been inconsistent at times. I mean, we're seeing an emergence from Higgins, so that's really cool to see. But Woody Marks is continuing to be a guy that's going to get some decent opportunity and decent volume. It's just the Texans' offense is not very good. And so if they don't get the opportunity at the goal line, Nick Chubb is liable to get some opportunity there and be the guy they use in the red zone or at the goal line. Woody Marks has been explosive, but it's just the Chiefs' defense is really strong. It's a must-win for the Chiefs. It's a must-win for the Texans, too, but the Chiefs are in do-or-die moment. And what we know is that team has typically clutched up, and this year they haven't. They have not been the team to win the one-score games or to win the close games, despite what Patrick Mahomes has done the rest of his career. So Woody Marks is someone that I like in this situation. I like in this role. I'm just limiting my expectations to what he would do. I mean, this past week, he was running back 42. He got you 7 points. So that is what you could expect him to do again this week. So just manage your expectations. But it's a big time week. So if you have a start sit decision for your running back position, throw it in the chat. I'll come back and answer those. We'll go through it. I appreciate everyone's help that I've had throughout this entire regular season. It's been an absolute pleasure to give you these running back videos every single week. You guys have been great. So if you could like that video, subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network, check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. The Discord's free. People are asking questions in there all the time. They're answered by me, Coach, Pete, Hoff, Tyler, whoever's on the Face Off Sports Network. They're in there answering questions. So go join right now. Join the conversation. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.